Up next on the Handy Guys podcast, deck lighting techniques.
So here we are, Brian, out on my deck, which I built about a year ago.
All right.
And we had a question from a listener just today to show our listeners how quick we are to respond.
Right.
We're not always this quick, but tell our listeners about the question we had specifically as it pertains to deck lighting.
Right. We had a guy who wanted to know about low voltage deck lighting. LED lighting is specifically what he asked about. But how do you run the wires? What do you need to consider? And so we had a couple back and forth emails, and I thought we'd just talk about those on this show and out here on the deck.
All right, so Brian, tell me, I have some really cool deck lighting. I think it's cool. It's probably basic. It doesn't, it's nothing fancy, but I like it. So it doesn't take a lot to get good deck lighting. What constitutes great deck lighting?
Well, I think the key to deck lighting is that, one, that it doesn't overwhelm. You don't want it to be like daylight when you're sitting out on your deck at night, right?
Right.
You want it just to kind of, see where you put your beverage. You want to be able to have
That's a good point.
Right?
You don't want a big spotlight out there. You want some ambient lighting
Exactly.
to allow you to get, if you have a lot of deck furniture, which in my case I have a fair amount, or if you have neighbors over, which I have, you don't want to be tripping over things, but you want mood lighting essentially.
Right, and you don't want, and also maybe lighting for steps so you can see the stairs or the railings better.
Good point. And when I had my deck built, and we've talked about this in a previous audio podcast, we put in deck lighting, and I did not know how to design a deck, so I relied on my builder, which was nice because it could get done faster. And they said, it's our common way to put a light on every other step up to the deck. And so I said, sure, and it works out perfectly. And they actually prefabricated the deck steps with the lights already in place. So when they built it, the wiring, everything was all there. Yep. They just had to connect the wiring to the rest of the deck.
I still haven't put lighting on my steps. I may do that at some point down the road, but I did kind of what you did with lights that go onto the post.
Okay. So let's talk about that. Up next, we're going to talk about the types of deck lighting and what your choices are, and also how to kind of wire them so that they're in place without some ugly wires all hanging out, and how you connect it into your household current. Up next.
So Paul, I saw a guy do a deck lighting. He got some, went to the home center, he bought some lights kind of like what you have, and he just basically wrapped the wire around the railing to string it from one light to the next.
Did he put any duct tape to kind of hold it, keep it on the railing?
I don't remember but it looked like crap. Right. So you've got to come up with a way to get the light from there to there to there to there to there to there. Now on a railing system like you have, which is aluminum, that's really easy because it's hollow.
Right, it's powder-coated aluminum, it's hollow, no problem to run the wires. In fact, the lights are all attached to the posts. I assume, I don't know if they drilled holes or they're already there. Attached them. I don't see any wires, Brian, except for underneath the deck, where they run them along the joists. And there's some loose wires down there, which will show. I need to attach or restaple some wires, but the point is, it's all underneath. Out of sight for, in my case where I have a walkout basement, and you can walk underneath the deck, it gives you a good view of it. You can see it, but otherwise it's hidden.
On mine, what I had to do is mine is wooden, and we'll have some B-roll footage of this, but I have a rail and then a top cap. So what I did is I took a circular saw and ran a groove down the rail before I put the top cap on, and then I drilled from the post up into that groove, wired everything up, and then put the top cap back on, so that hides all those wires.
So in other words, if you're building your own deck or you're hiring out, you want to think through, first of all, whether you want lighting and how you're going to hide the wires. If you have solid wood posts, you're going to need to think a little bit. You want to prefabricate those posts with some grooves or the top caps, and you can hide it, and it looks very slick.
The worst case scenario is you might staple it up underneath the edge of the railing on the outside where someone might not see it.
So, Brian, what about if you want to do an overhead, is it a pergola?
Pergola.
Yeah. I have a neighbor has a pergola on his back. He has a paver patio. He put in a pergola attached to his house and used the same. They're actually the same lights. It's the same builder as my deck, and they use the same lighting and they build it into the pergola. So it's not just decks. You can use these lights.
Right,
you can use it in pergolas. There's a lot of opportunities to get it, and it's just awesome. Just do it right, and it's great ambient lighting.
I've even, if you want to go really cheap, I've seen people use Christmas lights even.
yeah,
right?
Sure.
You can wrap them around the railing or something like that.
Nope.
And you know what? It looks
it's
pretty
not bad.
cool.
Yeah,
right?
You're right. Absolutely. So let's talk about, what kind of lighting should you use? What are your choices?
Right. Well, this is all low voltage lighting we're talking
Okay.
about here, right? So that requires what's called a transformer. So you're not going to get, if you mess up, you're not going to kill yourself with the electricity or anything like that. It's very simple wiring.
Let's take a step back. Low voltage.
Low voltage.
Why?
Low voltage because you don't need to worry about all the building codes and stuff with the high voltage electricity. It's easier to run the wires. You don't have all the restrictions on protecting the wire and things like that.
Okay, so
you can
in other
bury
words,
it, you can have it exposed.
Okay, so you have a transformer, and it's literally, like you said, it's like Christmas lights. It's different because they're not necessarily low voltage. But once you use that transformer, you go to low voltage. Now you're not necessarily requiring an electrician. Your deck builders can do it. You can do it.
Right.
You can run it and not feel like you're going to get electrocuted. It's very simple.
Right. The transformer is just a box that plugs in, and then you connect your low voltage wires to it and then run them to each light.
And you really can use the same kind of lighting for landscaping and for other purposes like that.
Absolutely. And you can even use the same transformer.
Right.
If it's big enough. They have different transformers depending on how many lights you have. Some will work with 10 lights, some will work with 30, 50, or 100 lights.
Okay, so you size the transformer based on how many lights you need.
Right.
And then there's different types of low voltage lights.
Right. You have LED lights, you have halogen lights, you have incandescent lights, and they're all great. So you want to, my opinion is you pick your light out by the style and by the sort of the color temperature of the light. Like these have a little bit of a yellow tint to them, these lights. I think these are LEDs.
Right, they are.
They're cool to the touch. Now mine are halogens. They're a little yellower, but they also get warm. Not that big of a deal. It's a different look. The bulbs are probably going to be replaced more often than yours, I would imagine. The LEDs aren't going to burn out.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about color temperature before when we talked about CFLs and LEDs.
Right.
So LEDs allow you to really pick your color temperature in some ways. These are a little warmer, as we would call it. They have a lower Kelvin temperature number, probably around 3,000 or so, similar to your incandescent bulbs. I actually never thought about it when I had them installed about color temperature because outdoors I don't think about it so much because you're not thinking about matching lights to other lights or that sort of thing.
But it would look really odd if this was a pure bright light.
You might be right.
Pure bright white light, I think.
It could look bluish or just,
Right. So look at them. If you can go to a lighting store and look at different ones lit up and see what you like, you might be able to see a difference there.
Okay, so we're looking at, so you have low voltage, you look at color temperature, and design, really, about something that'll match your deck.
Right, so there's hundreds of different styles out there, right? So you have this sort of inverted, half cone shaped, mine are sort of a eyelid shaped, they have some that are square, you've got prairie style, craftsman style, all different styles to go with your deck. Some that are built into the post cap, some that go down underneath the railing. So there's hundreds of different kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I remember I saw on I remember seeing years ago researching when they put 4x4 posts, you can get the caps that fit right on top with lights.
Right.
And I thought that would be really cool. But when I saw these, it fit right on the posts. They were so simple. And let's talk about the transformer.
Right. Well, the transformers, there's all kinds of transformers. Yours is a really fancy schmancy one. my transformer, it's just an aluminum box. It's attached to the side of the house right next to an outlet that's near the deck. And it has a photovoltaic sensor. So it'll sense when it's dark out and turn the lights on. When the sun comes up, it'll turn them off. Now, I took the outlet that it's plugged into and wired that to a switch. so I can just turn them on and off when I need to. So I normally just leave it off.
Right.
But if I turn it on and I forget about it in the morning, it's going to shut the lights off.
All right, so you're sort of a fancy setup, whereas mine was the easiest way to do it, which is if you already have an external outlet to your house, you have an outlet on the back of your house, what you can do as a deck builder or your builder, if you hire someone, is to simply mount the transformer somewhere or even set it on the deck floor and plug it into your outlet. You're all set. You can now wire all your lighting into it. You can run the wire directly under the deck and then route it to all the different lights so that it's hidden, and it's very simple. So, the advantage of yours is you have a light switch on and off.
Right.
Mine, as you said, is a fancy transformer, and it is fancy, so it has a lot of different options. You can have the lights go on after, so many hours after dark, or right after dark, or turn off so many hours after dark. There's I don't even understand it. I have to look at the manual because there's so many features I was showing you guys earlier.
Right.
Or
mine has
you just
no
have
manual.
on
It's just,
and off.
Right. Mine doesn't even have a switch in it.
You don't
I
have.
think.
Okay, so mine has all these features, but as it turns out, I use it as on and off.
Right.
When I use it, I just turn it on. When I turn it off, I just turn it off. But you have all those other settings. If you'd prefer to have your lights on at night or, come on automatically, you can do that if you desire.
Sure.
There you have it. That's deck lighting. You have many different options. It's not that difficult. Make sure you consider it when you're going to build a deck, and I think you'll be a lot happier.
There you go. Thanks.
Thanks for watching The Handy Guys.